fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco here with Macabre Daily, and I am excited today because I'm joined by Aron Meinhardt, who is the cinematographer and producer behind the co-producer rather behind the film I Live Here Now, which has just had its one of its debuts at Fantasia International Film Festival. Aron is cut his teeth in the camera and electrical department and working in shorts, films, and TV and features. And this taking on the role of cinematographer for I Live Here Now, which I think all I've heard and all I've seen has been extremely positive reviews, which I feel the same. So, Aron, thank you so much for being here and congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, super excited to chat with you.
Well, me as well. And I know we don't have all the time in the world, so I'll just dive right into my first questions, which is just more of a backstory of how you got connected with Julie and the rest of the team behind I Live Here Now and what that process was like.
Yeah, I met Julie actually through a short film with a that was being directed by a dear friend of mine, J. Lee Mackenzie, called Hidden Blueprints, which is still kicking around. It just had another screening like 8 years later in New York
The
at the
life of a
Center for
short
Art.
film.
Yeah, definitely. So that was actually, I was not the DP, I was the producer. We had a phenomenal DP, and I had never produced anything before in my life, and I picked one to start with. It had kids and animals and a bunch of locations and way too many characters for a short film, and just like it was like a 12-day shoot. And but super great film, super proud of it. And Julie came on as an executive producer because she was judging a screenwriting contest that Jay Lee won. And yeah. So I don't know. I had never produced before, but I have done every job on a film set, and I'm like, okay, if my job is to facilitate other people doing their jobs, I think I know what to do. Um, but then Julie contacted me later after I moved to New York and said she needed a producer for a couple shorts she was working on. Um, and she asked me to produce them. I'm like, sure. And she asked me, she was like, okay, great. The first thing I need you to do is hire me a DP. And I'm like, Julie, you know I'm a DP, right? And she's like, oh no, that's perfect. You'll produce it and you'll shoot it. And
Just like
so
that.
yeah. So that's if you've met Julie, it's just like it's full steam ahead. So yeah, that's how we started working together. And obviously now I shoot more and produce less, which is the way I like it. But I feel a DP's role is always, you're in charge of three different departments. You have, you know, not necessarily say over the budget, but you work closely with the line producer to try to solve problems and make things happen. It's being a DP, I have learned is primarily like a managerial job. You're it's there's all of the reasons why we love it. The art and the science of it. But at the end of the day, you're working with a lot of people, and you need to, keep everybody focused towards a common goal. So there's some overlap there.
Especially when you're shooting on film, which I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but was I Live Here Now, I think it was I read somewhere it was shot on 32 millimeter and 16 millimeter film stock. So, um,
35. Yeah.
35.
Almost entirely on 35. We did shoot on 16 in very specific moments for kind of specific reasons, but yeah, primarily 35.
Yeah, so in that case, you're talking about a cost that may not have been there if you were shooting digitally in regards to things like film stock and the like. So you definitely have to be aware of the finances as far as how you're going to present this. But I think you're spot on in that you are kind of, producing does overarch so many things, but as the DP, you are in essence kind of in charge of a very specific segment of the film, and as such, you have to kind of treat it as you're almost like an entrepreneur of that section. And the film has been compared stylistically to the likes of films like David Lynch's. It obviously has a very surreal, dreamlike nature to it, especially in the way the storytelling is somewhat nonlinear. What kind of inspirations visually did you pull from, or did you kind of work with Julie to pull from to really create the look of the film? Because it is quite unique.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. I think, we pull influences from a lot of places, but I think like a lot of the references are have been really glowingly talked about in the coverage. But Julie has a really specific style, and because I've had the good fortune to work with her so long and over so many different projects, we've really sort of honed that visual language together. Julie's an incredible photographer, and I end up doing a lot of lighting design for her photography. So it's a lot like being a DP, except she's holding the camera. Um, and that's been like sort of a laboratory for us to play with different styles and try out visual ideas, because I think Julie was really clear on the to all the department heads on the symbolism and just sort of like all of the pieces of this film and how they were gonna come together. And I think that's where Julie is such a great manager, is she really empowers her department heads. Speaking of our incredible production designers, Hannah and Lucy, our costume designer, Amit, um, it's uh, we're all trying to be on this journey with the main character of Rose, and kind of externalize what's happening in to her internally, and we all need to be pushing together as Lucy Fry, the terrific lead, like as she's pushing the character and Julie is driving that character. We're all just trying to keep up with the intensity of her performance. So I think it was a very intuitive process as well. I think, you plan as much as you can, but I know my gaffer, Tom Knoll, he showed me like we were trying to hone in on this visual cue that is sort of Rose chasing something about herself. And I had ordered some special lenses, and we thought maybe it was like a cut or a movement of the camera. Um, Maybe it was a lighting change, and he showed me this crazy light from the 60s that just basically has this little motor and all these glass prisms
Oh,
that it shoots like a 2K tungsten uh, through. And he showed it to me, and I'm like, Julie, take a look at this. I think we found it. And we selected gels and like found it within our color palette, but we ended up having this really unique lighting cue that is the light that pours out the vent, like it's just like it's always calling to her, and asking her to go deeper and go back to the roots of her trauma. And we to say we found that in prep is like we found that like day weeks, days before we started shooting. It's just like, okay, that's it. So I think you plan as much as you can, but you leave some room for discovery.
I mean, I think some of to be too rigid on something like this might eliminate the potential for that kind of spur of moment improvisation, and whether it's in the performances or things that are happening behind the
Mhm.
camera. And it's funny you mentioned Tom because I had a very specific question about how you worked with him because so much of the film's look has to do with the way it's lit. So
Mhm.
much of the scenes in the sauna, for example, that just kind of have this beaming red light, and the ways in which the camera will distort the faces of Rose and other people. There's clearly got to be a good kind of, second hand between you and Tom. So I'm wondering, how did you, especially given your background in the electrical and the gaffer side of film production, how did you all work together to really elicit a lot of the visual emotions and actions that are just seen through way things look?
Yeah, yeah. Tom was incredible, and they really, we shot primarily outside of some pickups, we shot primarily in the UK, and I was really concerned about that because it was really hard for me to bring crew over in
Mhm.
terms of expense and logistics and all of that. So Tom is a phenomenal London-based gaffer, and yeah, I was concerned working with someone, especially in a position like that, who I hadn't worked with before. And production assured me it's just like, no, this guy's an artist, and that was really the case. A lot of times production will tell you things to get you to hire their guy that might not be true, but they were right about that
A
one.
little bit of sales and
Um,
marketing.
yeah, yeah, no, we're all doing it, but no, no, Tom really is an artist, and he really brought so much of himself to this, um and yeah, yeah, and again, it's just like because I lighting is so important to me, and it's such a mainstay of what I do with Julie for her still photography. We had a very specific palette, and a very distinct progression, because you when doing a film like this, is it really has to build, and you shoot out of order, and a lot of times you're like, oh man, this isn't as cool as what we were doing last week, and it's like, yeah, but it can't, because this happens before that, and like
Right.
we need to earn it. So I think we go to really bold stylistic places, but Tom was really great about adding elements in, um, yeah, in a very sort of deliberate and moderate sequence, so it doesn't feel like, we just go there for no reason. It's motivated by the characters and by the story. And yeah, really, really love working with Tom, and just like such a sweetheart. I know actually that light, that was very important. I think one of the platters got dropped at some point, and shattered,
Oof.
and I was like, okay, like what's the holdup? Like, we're like, all of a sudden we're waiting something, and he stitched that thing, a bunch of broken pieces of glass. I saw him over at his table putting them, fitting them back together using wire to
Wow.
like create kind of a wire cage. We had like a couple days left of shooting, and he did, and it's this weird, unique light. There's not another one from the rental house, and like absolute hero to do that. And I think it just showed how much, commitment and passion he had for the project.
A real
Um,
MacGyver on the film, it sounds like.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, he brought so much.
And you know, it's interesting you mentioned the still photography that Julie does and kind of the lighting you do for that because the film does have a stillness to the way it's shot. You know, it's not doesn't have a very kind of vibrant camera that's always moving. It's not, you know, handheld. It's very intentional, and I think it allows the viewer to really just sit with the difficult emotions that are happening, especially to Rose and especially the situation. And it
Yeah.
never kind of lets the camera tell you how to feel so much as the camera allows you to gives enough space to the viewer to really feel how they want to feel about it, as opposed to being kind of told this is when you're supposed to get excited, this is when you're supposed to,
Yeah.
you know, cry, etc. And almost in tandem with the lighting and the camera work, you know, the locations. You know, this you mentioned you shot in the UK. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know, were these sets that were built or were these locations you found? And how did you find a way to like kind of negotiate your camera in some of these relatively tight spots, especially like the hotel rooms themselves don't seem all that big if they're actual places.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we were almost entirely on set, on stages. And yeah, and Hannah Rawson and Lucy Butler, not to be confused with Lucy Fry, our
Right.
lead, were absolutely incredible. I mean, I think they'll probably, I'll see them tomorrow and they'll probably correct me on this number. It's probably way more, but I think they built like 22 sets or
Holy
something.
shit.
And we're in, low budget film, like we were turning over the same sets. Like it's just like we would shoot something out that would get torn down and built back up as a different room.
Wow.
Um, their team, too numerous to list, but I love all of them. Um, really did an incredible job making this come to life, making it feel lived in, you know, hiding the gaps in the budget because, as we all do, because it's independent film. Nobody ever has enough money
Right.
for, and they certainly worked wonders. But um, yeah, I mean, I think certainly for the Love and Oven, which is where most of the movie takes place, you know, we were mindful to have enough room to get the dolly in there. There were some wild walls, but none that we had to use that much. But the other thing that they were incredible with is like there were a couple times where I'm like, can we tear this down? Just like for there's some overhead shots in Rose's bedroom where we I promised them we'd never shoot that way again because that was the deal. So I said we'd never shoot that way again, and we cut a huge notch out of the wall so we could lower the jib in and be able to see all the rest of the space. um, there was a moment where I just needed more light coming through in the sauna, because we're just like lighting through slats and it just wasn't getting enough light to the talent, and we ripped out like a bunch of
Wow.
that. and and yeah, like in the culmination of the film, we're in a really beat up space, and that was like a bunch of production people in the art department and grips and people like knocking holes in the walls with hammers and saying goodbye to the set, and because that was some of the last scenes we shot. But no, yeah. So they were tremendously accommodating in terms of, physically changing things for me. And yeah, the Crown Inn is just its own very important character in the film, and they really brought that character to life.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering, I genuinely was wondering, like, if there's a place that actually exists, like the Crown Inn, it's got to be some in the list of places people need to see before they die because it just looks so out there. But the fact that it was all built on a set, I think, demonstrates again the level of artistry of all the talent involved. You know, yourself, you know, Tom on the gaffer side, you know, Lucy. Um, and I
Yeah,
forget the other
yeah,
person.
Hannah and
I mean,
Lucy,
Hannah and Lucy. I mean, it's
absolutely incredible.
just a huge collaboration. And you know, my last question for you, Aaron, is really kind of a fun one, but I've been told it's a little difficult, so take your time with it. But if you were asked to program a double feature with I Live Here Now, what do you think would make a fun or good companion piece to watch along with it?
Hmm. Can I make it a triple feature?
Yes, you can break the rule,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, cool. Because I think it would fit really well in between Rosemary's Baby and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's got the quiet, the almost the tone of the film thematically that lends itself to Rosemary's Baby, but the visual look of the film has that eccentricity that, you know, is very much alive in Las Vegas in Fear and Loathing. So I'd that'd be a
Yeah.
killer triple feature, especially if you kind of put this at the end of those two, so that people can kind of get a sense of
Yeah.
the two styles and then how they come together. So sign me up for a ticket to that one.
Amazing. You can also play with the order if you want to, depending on when, if you want to have a good time or if you want to have a bad time. Uh, also
Just
depends
to
on when you drop the acid.
Right, that's true. I mean, and it, you know, if you start maybe kind of at the midpoint of Rosemary's Baby, so that it really kicks in for the more visually
Yeah.
trippy parts for Fear and Loathing. I mean, Fear and Loathing starts off with a bang, but I Live Here Now does
Yeah.
take a little time to ease itself into the weirdness. So, um, I think either way, you'd be riding the wave of something great there. But maybe discuss, maybe learn something about yourself too in the process. Who knows? I mean, hallucinogenics are great for that. So.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's what we're hoping for this film. We want to create a pathway for people to learn about themselves with or without psychedelics.
Fair. And I think mission accomplished. Again, it's a fantastic film. It's a visual feast. It's got a lot to say, and I think it doesn't tell you what it's trying to say so much as it lets you react to it as is. And I think the best, you know, particularly independent films do that, is that they don't bludgeon you with a point or a theme. Instead, they kind of give you the agency to figure that out yourself. And you know, Aaron, I know that I Live Here Now is still making the rounds at festivals like Locarno and
Yeah.
Edinburgh Film Festivals this month. I'm sure a wider release will be announced later, so we'll be happy to cover it then. But I just want to say thank you for your time, and another congratulations on the film. I can't wait for more people to see it, and I know that the folks at Fantasia are very lucky to get to see this in person. So hoping to see more of you in the future as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. Really nice chatting with you. Yeah, I'm actually in here in Locarno right now. You can see, but the fact that the sun is entirely down, we're in a different time zone. But yeah, have a number of screenings coming up here, and I think there's some more festival announcements to come in the following weeks and months. So stay tuned.
Lovely. I know we've got fantastic fests and Brooklyn Horror Fests coming up as far as announcements, so I don't know what'll be in them, but hope to see the film in there. And again, Aaron, thank you so much for your time. I'll let you get to sleep. I'm sure it's late there, and I hope to talk with you again soon.
All right, thank you so much, Matt.